Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, May 4th. It's a Thursday. We got an early slate going on today, starting, right around noon Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. There is 9 games in total on this main slate. So what I'll be doing in this video, going through a quick little recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out. Talking about the potential weather spots for today, there's a couple popping up once again. Doesn't look like anything should be delayed or postponed, but a couple spots where it definitely could rain today once again. Then after that, we'll get over to the core picks for today over on FanDuel. And then after that, we'll get over to the cheat sheet, which is up on the YouTube community tab. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on Patreon as well. The cheat sheet itself is 100% free. If you're interested in some more in-depth notes, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Coach Craig Sport. Small monthly donation, and get it some extra additional information on each slate Monday through Friday, occasionally on the weekends, but not quite as much this month with everything else that I do have going on at this point in time. But with that being said, getting into that recap of yesterday's picks. At the pitcher position with Alek Manoah, he had pretty good history versus Boston in the past. Yesterday, not the greatest start for him. He was $8,400, only got to 18 points, so he was a miss yesterday. Pitched 5 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned runs. I believe he gave up a couple unearned runs as well, and then only 3 strikeouts for him yesterday. So wasn't a terrible start, but it just wasn't good. And he didn't get the win, didn't get a quality start, obviously, so that kind of hurt him a little bit as well. Can't really say too much else there about Manoah, start play that really just didn't pay off in general, even though he did have good history in the past. First, the Boston Red Sox. At first base, we went Ryan Mountcastle. He's $3,500. Got 6 points yesterday, so I did end up giving him a push. Some decent history in the past, some decent history in the most recent days as well. So wasn't a bad play, just wasn't a great play at the same time. Anthony Rendon at $2,700 at third base, got to 9.5, so I did give him a hit yesterday since he was at that, lower end price tag. Bo Bichette was kind of the guy that really killed us yesterday, $4,000, been hitting the ball really well. Had some good previous history, but unfortunately went 0 for 4 yesterday, so he was a miss. And then we have Max Kepler at $2,600, got a 6 points. So did give him a push. He wasn't a good play. He wasn't a bad play. He was just kind of a guy that was there. Didn't really help us, didn't really hurt us. So not the greatest day yesterday, looking to bounce back in a pretty good way today. So we'll get off of the recap screen. We'll go over to RotoWire. We'll look at some of these weather spots for today just in general. So let me get that pulled up real quick, and we'll talk through some of these weather spots. So the good news is this Washington and Chicago game with the Cubs and the Nationals doesn't really have too much weather as a factor today. So that is a good sign since the last couple of days they've had, rainstorms out that way. As we move down, kind of the big ones that we're going to see is the Milwaukee and the Rockies game here, 74% chance of rain at this point in time. Supposedly not getting postponed, maybe a potential delay, maybe a little bit of weather factor just in general. Probably want to avoid the pitchers in this game either way, being at Coors Field and some potential rain. Plus, Wade Miley and Connor Siebel, not the greatest pitchers in the world, even though Wade Miley's been pretty decent to start the year. As we move down, there's another one too. I think I could have swore there was another game that could potentially have some rain as well, but that looks like the major one, at least for today, is going to be that Milwaukee and Colorado game. Let's see if I can find the other one here real quick. But that's pretty much it for today. So pretty simple in terms of weather. If anything does change throughout the day, I'll leave it down in the comments as well. But we'll get off this screen when we move over to FanDuel. Talk about the core picks that I do have for today. I'm just going to start off by saying today, in terms of core picks, not too much to go off of. Some of these guys don't have a lot of history against the pitchers they are facing today. So kind of just going pretty simple today. At the pitcher position, one with Lucas Giolito. I think there is probably about 4 different pitchers you can play today, whether it's him, whether it's Pablo Lopez, whether it is Jesus Luzardo, who has really good history against the Braves as well. I went with the cheapest option in Lucas Giolito today. If you want to go like a George Kirby route, you could do that. Justin Verlander's on today's slate, but he's $11,500 coming off the IL for his very first start of the year. So how many pitches is he going to have? But Giolito, he's won 40 points against the Twins earlier this year. He's had one bad start on the season. Otherwise, he's been pretty fine, $8,300. Pretty good value play here. Hopefully, it doesn't end up like Alek Manoah, but last year, even against the Twins, he got 37, 27, 24, and 36 points. If we can get 40 points out of him at $8,300 today, be pretty happy with that just in general. Then at first base, and we'll end up on CJ Cron. He's been hitting the ball pretty well as of late. He's a guy that typically hits left-handed pitching very, very well. Going against Wade Miley today, he is a left-handed pitcher, obviously. Game at Coors Field, some upside there. He's only 1 for 8 versus Wade Miley in his career, so that is a little bit of a concern. Plus, maybe potential weather. If that does end up changing this at all throughout the day, I will leave that there. But you'll see double-digit points throughout the last 4 games for CJ Cron. And like I said, already a guy that hits left-handed pitching very well, just on an average basis. Then we move down to Nico Horner at $3,700 at second base. So probably more than I would like to pay for Nico Horner just in general, but he is 4 for 4 versus Patrick Corbin in his career. Obviously, Patrick Corbin was one of the worst starting pitchers in all of baseball last season. Nico Horner sitting over 300 on the year. You see, a pretty consistent bat here. Obviously, the upside a little bit more limited with a guy like Nico Horner, since he's not a guy that hits for a lot of power, but at the same time, he's a guy that can string multiple hit games together, can steal some bases, so can give you some upside in that regard as well. And then at third base, we have Nolan Arenado. He's only $2,800. Yes, it's been a slow start to the season for him, but at $2,800, I'm going to take that every day of the week. 1 for 3 versus Griffin Canning in his career. See the average is down to 244, coming off a double-digit game, a multi-hit game yesterday. So hopefully kind of getting back on the right track for Nolan Arenado today. But at $2,800, definitely do like taking that chance just in general. If you guys want to play somebody else instead of Nolan Arenado, that's definitely understandable as well. Today's a good day to kind of mix and match because there's not a lot of clear standouts on tonight's slate overall. And then last but not least, we have Dansby Swanson, kind of an all-infield day today. No outfielders in the core picks, but Dansby Swanson is 9 for 35 with 1 home run versus Patrick Corbin in his career. So some decent history there. Obviously, he's had a pretty strong start to the season. We can look at some of that as well. When it comes to Dansby Swanson, 295 on the season, 2 home runs, only 9 RBIs though. So I'm looking for a little bit of decent upside here. Hopefully a multiple hit game versus Patrick Corbin. Already talked about Patrick Corbin being one of the weaker starting pitchers of all in baseball at this point in time. But that's kind of what I do have in terms of core picks. If you guys have any additional questions, if there's somebody you kind of want to play today and have a question mark about, definitely feel free to ask. Definitely feel free to reference that cheat sheet as well, because there's a lot of good players out there today. Like I said, just down a lot of history when it comes to pitcher versus hitter matchups on today's slate overall. But a lot of different ways that you can mix and match, especially on tonight's slate overall, or I should say today's slate, since it's this afternoon as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you got $13,500, meaning just under $3,400 per player. So you can pretty much pay up for anybody you want on this slate if you go with these 5 guys. Kind of mix and match from there. If you want to build a little bit more balanced approach, that's definitely fine as well. But with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We'll go over to the bottom half of the cheat sheet over on the YouTube community tab and talk about the top GPP teams that I do have to stack for today. So let me get that brought up here real quickly. So at the very bottom here, we have the Colorado Rockies going against the Milwaukee Brewers and Wade Miley. A lot of these guys do have pretty good history versus him in the past. CJ Cron did make my core list as well, but Chris Bryant's got good history versus him. Charlie Blackmon's got good history versus him. Jerkson Profar also has pretty good history versus him. Mike Moustakas, if he ends up starting, has decent history versus him, but he's probably not going to start with the lefty on lefty matchup either way. So some pretty good upside there, especially if that game is able to go off. If you want to play the Brewers side of that game as well against Connor Siebold and the Rockies bullpen, you could definitely do that as well. Pretty good game to stack just in general. Then we have the Baltimore Orioles. Not a lot of history here versus Jordan Lyles in the past. Obviously, he pitched for them last season, but Jordan Lyles hasn't been good so far this year. And a lot of times when he is starting, I do like to stack against him just in general. So if you want to stack some Orioles bats, definitely feel free to do so once again today. And then we move to the Chicago Cubs going against Patrick Corbin. Already talked about him being one of the weaker starting pitchers in all baseball. Was pretty much the worst pitcher in all baseball last year in terms of starting pitchers, the guys that pitched, pretty much every 5th day. So do like the Cubs bats. Obviously, 2 of them are in my core picks. If you want to go after like Cody Bellinger, if you want to go after some of these other Cubs hitters as well, definitely feel free to do so. And then last but not least, I have the Seattle Mariners going against, I believe it's Drew Rosinski or something like that. Second start of the year for him. He's like 34 years old, doesn't have a lot of experience in the majors, previously mainly been a reliever. So don't really have too much upside there for him. And I do like some of these Mariners bats just going against him in general. So if you want to take some couple shots there, definitely would be one that I would consider recommending once again. If you want to go after the Cardinals or the Angels hitters, I think both those teams are very stackable going against Drew Flaherty and Griffin Canning, but there's some upside for it to go really well, and there's some downside for it to go really wrong at the same time, but both teams have pretty good lineups at that. But with that being said, that's kind of what I do have in terms of MLB DFS for today, in terms of core picks, top GPP stacks, weather updates, everything else like that. If anything does change throughout the day, I'll leave it down in the comments. I'll leave the starting lineups as they do come out throughout the day down there as well. But with that being said, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on today's slate, just in general. Definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS right now, mainly MLB DFS as well as USFL DFS. USFL DFS video will be out tomorrow, so definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're into as well. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate everyone that did take the time out of their day to tune in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.